Let's navigate to the resource groups. So this is the current resource groups I have. So I will create a new resource group which will hold the virtual machine. I will name the resource group demo Radwan and choose the closest data center to my location, which is in my case UK South. Then review and create. Now let's refresh. So we can see that this is the resource group created. Just navigate to the resource group, and then I will create add and type here Windows 10. Then select the Windows 10 version 1909. And then I will create. Just put a name for my machine, VM window demo Radwan, and here the same data center, UK South. And I prefer to change the size with a little speed virtual machine. And just here to put the username and the password for the virtual machine. Of course, it must be strong password with 12 characters. Then I will enable RDB or remote desktop. Then this will create the virtual machine. So let's get back to the resource group. Open the resource group, and we can wait for the virtual machine to be created. Now it's complete. Refresh. We can see that this is all the component of the virtual machine. Just click on the virtual machine, then click on connect, download the RDB file, and start remote desktop connect. Just here need to connect to the local account, which is mradwan, and type the password. This will connect to the virtual machine. So I will use this virtual machine as a client machine. So first I need to prepare the machine with all the prerequisites in order to develop the ACP.NET Core application with Entity Framework Core. So let's install Chrome first. This is my favorite browser. It's better to connect to the network. Then just download Chrome. I don't need to participate. I prefer to show you the complete experience. So now I install the Chrome, and then let's hide this. I will paste my lab files, which I have all the commands that I were running during this lab. Let's sort them. So here is the links for all the prerequisites that I need to download. The first is the Git, so I will download Git. The second is the .NET Core SDK, which includes the runtime as well. This is for Windows as an installer, 64-bit. Get downloaded, let's install it. Just forward the installation. So this will install Git Bash for Windows. Now it's complete. Let's download Visual Studio Code and SQL Server Management Studio. While we download that, we install the .NET Core SDK. Now installed. Let's install now the SQL Server Management Studio. Now install. It's completed. Let's install the Visual Studio Code that we will use for developing the application. Now I accept. Now Visual Studio Code installed. So now my machine is ready to run and develop ASP.NET Core with Entity Framework. So let's close all of these tabs. This is the Git repo where it has the sample application, the to-do list. So to show you the application, it's just a sample application for to-do list. So let's navigate to where I will clone the repo. It usually go to the user under my name. So let's open Git Bash. Then I will here clone the Git repo by using git clone command. So as we can see, this downloads the .NET Core folder. If we navigate, we can see all the application downloaded. And then I will navigate to this folder by type cd .NET Core. So now I am inside the folder. And then I will start restore the package by .NET Restore. This will restore all the package for this application. You can watch this video for more information about Git with animation. You will see different animated commands like branch, merge, rebase, cherry pick, and many others. So as we can see, it restored the JSON file with all packages. And then I will run .NET Entity Framework data update, which will migrate the database locally and will create the database because there is no database yet. So as we can see, this is the local database created. And of course, I use the same command to migrate if there is any change. Then I will run the application using .NET Run. So this will run the application using the built-in web server on the machine with the local host. Then I can take this local host, copy, and then open that on the browser to navigate to the application. This is just because this is not an HTTPS protocol, so this is just warning. So I will proceed because this is just a local. So as we can see, this is the local to-do list, which will run locally. So let's create few records or few to-do list item. Test one and put a date. Let's create another item. Put a date for that item. Another one. With a date as well. So now let's create the Azure App Services and Azure SQL so we can deploy our application to the cloud. So first, I will navigate to the Azure portal, open a new instance. Close this now, I don't need it. And then here I will run the Cloud Shell. The Cloud Shell is a command line on the cloud which I can run instead of running the command from my machine, because in this case I don't need to install any command line interface tools. So the first is, let's clear that to have a clean one. So the first is I will create the main resource group that will has all the resources of the lab. This will create. So let's navigate to the resource group, refresh. We can see that the resource group created. Let's navigate that. So here I will create the SQL Server Logical server, and as we can see, we use here the resource group that I created and also the location for the resource group and a username and the password. And this username and password, I will use them later in the connection string to connect to my app. So this will create the SQL Server Logical Server. So let's navigate here, refresh. So we can see that the SQL Server created. Let's open the SQL Server. And now I will navigate to the firewall. So we can see that allow Azure Service resource to access the server is turned off. So I will create a firewall rule which will turn it on. So as we can see, this command will create a firewall rule for this resource group for the SQL server, and the firewall rule has name and has a start IP and the end IP. As long as the start IP and the end IP, all of them 0, it means that allow the Azure resources to access the SQL server. So let's execute that command and get back to the firewall. Let's refresh by going. So as we can see now, it's on. So let's navigate back to the resource group. So get back here and start creating the SQL database. So here, as we can see, I will create the database using the DTU model with S0 basic tier. So let's navigate to the resource group to see the database. So if I refresh, we can see now the database is created. And if we go for the type of the resource, we can see this is SQL database and this is SQL Server. Now let's navigate to the Cloud Shell again, and let's create the deployment user. I will use this user when I want to push my application to the cloud to authenticate. So just create this user. And then I will create the service plan, which is the infrastructure for the web service using the basic tier and the Linux container. So let's navigate to the resource group to see that service plan. So we can see the service plan created, and we can see also the logo of the Linux. Let's navigate back to the Cloud Shell and run this command, which will create the web app. So as we can see here, we're using the service plan and using the .NET Core for running that. So this will have an image of this container which has the .NET Core runtime, and we enable also the deployment local Git, which means that with this deployment enable, I can push the application from a Git local machine. So let's this run. So if we get up, we can see the URL of the Git. So we can copy that. Also, I can access that from the web app. Let's navigate to show you that. So if I navigate, refresh first. So we can see this is the web app created. If I open that, this is the Git URL if I want to use it. And here the URL of the application. And here for the app service. If I go for the configuration, as we can see in the connection string, it's empty. There is no any connection string value. So let's go for the Cloud Shell. So this will set the connection string. Again, I will use the username and password. I use them when I create the SQL Logical Server, and also naming the connection string as my connection and using the name of the database that I created before. So just set that, which will change the connection string value in the web app. Let's see that, refresh here. So we can see now my connection has the value that I put it. Now the application settings, it's empty. So now I will set the environment variable for the application setting. So as we can see here, pre-production. So this in order to hide the error. Of course, if I change that to development, this will display the error if there is any error. So let's navigate to that application setting, refresh. If we click now, we can see that with a production value. So let's navigate now to the Cloud Shell. Let's now open the Git bash so I can push my code. So I stop the local server, and then here I will just set the configuration of my email and my name, because this is the first time using Git on this machine. So I need to set this configuration for Git. So here I just put the email and the username. Then I will open the Visual Studio Code. You can watch this video for more information about Kubernetes cluster, how to deploy Docker image to Azure Kubernetes service, and how to configure CI/CD pipelines for an end-to-end development and deployment scenario. So I will just navigate to the startup because the code was configured to connect to the local database. So I will delete this and put this code. So this code will just look at the configuration on the web. If it is production, then it will get the connection string in the web app, which is named my database connection. Then here I will just git add dot to commit that, and then git commit, adding the database connection. So this will commit local to my local git. Now adding a git remote and using the URL with the git before. Now push that to that remote repo, which is in this case is the web app. So this will push all the application. Here I will use the deployment user password. So this will push all the application to the web app on Azure. Once it's completed, as we can see, it restores the package. So all the package, and also part of the code that I put it, as we can see, it doing the data migration. So let's navigate here to the application and open the URL of the app service. So as we can see now, we have the app service, the to-do list running on app service. So let's create the few item. Another item. Another one with a date. Let's develop a new feature in the application and push these changes on the cloud. So first, I will navigate to the application on Visual Studio Code. So let's go for the model in the to-do, and I will add a new property, which is a Boolean done. And then here I will add the entity framework to add this property for the database. This will then run .NET EF database update, because this will update the database, migrate the database with the update. Then go for the controller, and then open the to-do here, controller, and then the create here to add the done as a part of the create. So let's delete that. So now we have the create including done in the model. And then navigate to the views, and in the to-do create, let's add the views to display the create. So here I put that part, and also in the index to display that in the list, I will put here display name for done, and also here. So let's save all. and go for the git bash, then .NET run, so we can run that local. We test that first locally. So let's navigate that to the local machine. Here, let's refresh. So as we can see now, let's create a new item, test1, and here is the date. And here is the new feature. As we can see, I have done column or done checkbox, create a new item. I will leave it without done, and so on. So let's push these changes to the cloud. Stop the local server, and then here git add dot, then git commit with the message add done field, then git push Azure master to push the changes to the web app. Restoring the package. So now restored complete. Now it's done, deployment successfully. Let's navigate to the app service. Let's refresh. This is the index. So because we added that also in the index, as we can see, I have that done. And also if I go here, let's add test 4, for example, 10, I can choose here. You can watch this video for more information about Docker, containerization, and where and how Docker can fit with DevOps and CI/CD pipelines. So as we can see here, we managed to develop a new feature and to push that to the app services on Azure. So let's try to connect to the SQL on Azure. So I will open the SQL Management Studio, and here I just navigate to the Azure SQL. Let's open the resource group where it has the database and copy the name of the SQL Azure. Remember, because the virtual machine exists on Azure and we put the firewall rule to enable Azure resources, so I can connect with that. If the SQL Management Studio on my local machine, I need to add my local machine IB as a firewall rule on Azure SQL. Then I will put here the username and password that I used to create the SQL Logical server, and then connect. So this connecting the SQL Management Studio to Azure SQL Server. So I can navigate to the table and also see the to-do. We can see the columns. I can also retrieve some field. Let's select the top records, and we can see that it has the data. Again, if I go for the SQL Server for the firewall, here is the place where I can put my local IP if I want to connect to the SQL Server from on-premises machine. As the application code already follows the guidance of ASP.NET Core logging in Azure, I can access the log generated from inside the container. But first, I need to turn on container logging. So let's turn that on first. Let's put it here. So this will turn on the logging container. Then add the stream diagnostics. And of course, I can start the application doing some transaction on the application and then streaming the diagnostics of the application. as we completed now the lab, I just need to clean the resources. So let's now delete the resource groups. It will confirm if I want to delete, and this will delete the resource group, and then deleting the other resource group.